Betaflight 4.6 is not out yet, but it has two new features that people are very excited about. And today is going to be the day that I try them out and I introduce them to you if you would like to try them out as well. The two new features are position hold and altitude hold. That's right. These two highly demanding features are finally being added to Betaflight 4.6. I'm Joshua Bardwell, and you're going to learn something today. Before we get into the video, I want to put a little disclaimer out there, and that is that Betaflight 4.6 is not released yet. And that means that it's not finished. It might have bugs, and it is probably going to change, sometimes in some significant ways, before it actually reaches full release. And that has led me to hold off making a video about this topic. In fact, usually I don't make videos about pre-release versions of Betaflight because I don't want to encourage you to get into something and then, oh, there's a bug, and then maybe it crashes your drone, or God forbid, maybe even creates a safety issue. And then number two, I don't want to make a tutorial about something and then it changes and the tutorial becomes invalid. But there's two reasons why I am breaking that rule today and making this video. And the first is that, okay, Betaflight 4.6 probably has some bugs. They're probably very, very minor. Many people are using it and not having an issue. So if you just take reasonable safety precautions and understand that what you're doing is a little bit more dangerous than just flashing good old Betaflight 4.5 that's been released, then you'll probably be okay. And the other thing is that this is just such an interesting topic, and there's so many people who want to know more about it, and I'm genuinely curious to try it out. And so I just decided today's the day, and as long as I'm going to do it, I may as well make a video for you. So let's get into it. I have to give credit where credit's due. I am working off of this tutorial in the Betaflight wiki. The Betaflight devs put all this work into making documentation, and they should certainly get the credit for that. Some of the things have changed a little bit between when this documentation was written and now, but most of it is up to date, and it's going to be the basis of the work that we do in this video. The first thing that we have to do if we want to take advantage of these features is flash Betaflight 4.6. And since Betaflight 4.6 isn't released yet, we've got to jump through a couple of extra hoops. Now, you can flash Betaflight 4.6 from Betaflight Configurator by enabling expert mode and show release candidates, and then this menu will appear, and if we pick development, we can then choose Betaflight 4.6.0, the latest build. But there's a reason that we shouldn't do this, and the reason is that Betaflight 4.6.0 requires Betaflight Configurator 11.0. A new version of Betaflight requires a new configurator. If you flash Betaflight 4.6.0 and then try to use Configurator 10.10, which is the latest release version, it won't work. It doesn't work right. So how do you get Configurator 11.0? And it is possible to download and install Configurator 11.0, but I don't recommend that you do that. Instead, I recommend that you go to app.betaflight.com, and that is an online version of the configurator that runs in your web browser. You do need to be running certain browsers. This only works with some browsers and not others. I'm pretty sure they need to be like Chromium-based browsers or Chrome. If we go there, that is always the latest version of the configurator, which is a pre-release version. And same disclaimer applies. There could be bugs. Caveat, safety precautions apply, but here we've got Configurator 11.0. And in fact, you can even, if you're running Chrome, you can even download this and install it as an app. I've done that runs on your computer. It's a web-based app. So first thing to do, go to app.betaflight.com and run the pre-release version of the Configurator 11.0. That is mandatory. Next, we're going to go to the firmware flasher. We're going to enable expert mode. We're going to show release candidates. We're going to go to development, and we're going to choose our target. Hold on. I have to select device. Let me put the flight controller into DFU mode just by holding down the bootloader button. Now, I can't find my DFU device. There it is, STM32 bootloader. Next, we'll select our target for our flight controller, whatever matches the target that's currently on the flight controller, and we'll select Betaflight 4.6.0 dev as the version we're going to flash. But we're not done yet. You see, Betaflight 4.6.0 doesn't come with altitude and position hold enabled by default. So if you just flash 4.6.0, you still won't have those features. We're going to go here to the build configuration, and I'm actually surprised that the OSD protocol is not selected by default. So this is an analog bird. I'll select that. You probably want to do the same. And then here in other options, we are going to select position hold, and we are going to select altitude hold. There's one more thing. If your GPS has a compass on it, and you want to use that compass, then you will also need to select magnetometers here. I don't know that for a fact, but I see the compass is a magnetometer, and it seems like if this was not selected, probably your compass wouldn't work. So I would also select that. My GPS doesn't have a compass, so I'm not going to select that. Having done all that, we then are going to load firmware and flash firmware. While it's flashing, you might be a little bit surprised to find out that Betaflight position hold can work without a compass or magnetometer. And it's true that position hold works better if you have a magnetometer, and traditionally firmware like iNav and ArduPilot that do position hold as sort of part of their bread and butter have required a compass in order to do position hold. The reason for that is this. Let's say that I'm trying to do position hold, I'm trying to hold position here, and I detect from my GPS that the drone is sliding this direction. What direction should I tilt the drone in order to counteract that? Should I roll left? Should I pitch forward? Should I pitch back? Should I roll right? You might think the answer is clearly, if I'm sliding this direction, I should roll left in order to compensate. But you're assuming that the drone is facing this direction, right? If I'm facing this direction and I'm sliding this way, I'm sliding the same direction, but now the correct action is to pitch forward. So obviously, I have to know which direction I'm facing in order to correct my position hold deviation. And a compass is the sensor that tells me which direction I'm facing. So how does Betaflight do it without a compass? Well, it turns out that a lot of the time it is safe to assume that the direction you're moving is the direction that you're facing. This is especially true with surface vehicles and airplanes. Basically, an airplane doesn't really move sideways, and it certainly doesn't move backwards. If an airplane is in a crosswind, you'll get a little bit of sideways track, but for the most part, if you know which direction an airplane is moving, you can assume it's facing that direction, and that is how Betaflight treats multi-rotors. By the way, iNav also added this feature in, I think, iNav 7.00, so this is not like the Betaflight devs invented this, credit where credit's due. The takeaway from this is that Betaflight position hold is going to have some requirements on us. It's not just we're gonna take off and immediately position hold. There are gonna be some requirements, and it's not gonna work quite as well as if we had a compass, but it is gonna let us use this on lots of drones that don't have compasses. We'll get into that a little bit more when we actually take it out and fly it. So now that we've flashed it, let's select our flight controller and connect to our flight controller, and I'm going to restore my previous configuration from Betaflight 4.5. And I am going to do something risky here. I'm just going to copy paste it in from the previous version from 4.5 to 4.6. There is potential that some of my 4.5 configuration is incompatible with 4.6, but this isn't a video about that. It would be safer for you to just set it up from scratch, but if you know what you're doing, you can just paste it in and you can look for the errors and correct the errors. This isn't a video about that. Next thing I have to do is go to the Betaflight Modes tab, and I want to find the altitude hold and pause hold modes. And what I'm going to do, I'll add range for those. Oops, that's the wrong aux channel. I want to put it on this switch. And what let's do is let's put altitude hold in the middle position, and then pause hold is going to be the same aux channel in the high position here. That's what I want. So let me save that, and I'll just do hide unused modes so we can see it a little more clearly. What we're going to do is aux 4 is going to be no altitude, no pause hold when the switch is down. In the middle position, we will have altitude hold only, and then in the up position, we will have both altitude hold and pause hold. And it is recommended, it's actually required, I suppose, that you have pause hold and alt hold activated at the same time if you're going to do pause hold. If you did pause hold without alt hold, I guess it would hold its position but not its altitude, and that's probably not what you want. Now, it should go without saying, but you would need to have a GPS configured in order for this to work. It's better also if you have a barometer, but not required. If you don't know how to set up your Betaflight GPS, this isn't going to be the video where we go into it. I'm going to link you to another video I made, Betaflight 4.5 GPS Rescue. This video goes through all the steps of setting up Betaflight GPS Rescue, but at the very beginning of the video, I go into the basic steps of actually getting your GPS working. That's linked in the video description below as well. I'll put a pop out on the corner of the screen if you need to go find that video. I'm going to assume at this point that you have a working GPS, and you're going to also want in the on-screen display to have your basic GPS indicators. Now, I've got more than just the minimum requirement, but what you want is at least the number of satellites, so you can know how many satellites you have locked, and you're going to want your direction home and distance home, because that is going to be key to knowing that the GPS is working correctly. Next, we're going to go to the Betaflight Wiki guide on setting up position hold in Betaflight 4.6. This is documentation created by the Betaflight devs, and it's how we're going to make sure that we haven't missed any important steps. This is linked in the video description below as well if you need to refer to it. So, step 1, include altitude hold and position hold in your firmware build. Ensure your GPS is working properly. We'll do that when we get outside. We'll verify the GPS is working before we even touch this option. Ideally, include a magnetometer and verify that it's working properly. So we do not have a magnetometer, and Betaflight will let us do position hold without a magnetometer, but there is a CLI option. If we scroll down here, where is it? Here we go. Pause hold without mag. There's a CLI option we have to enable in order to tell it to let us do this without a mag. So set pause hold, there it is. Pause hold without mag equals on. And let's see, set the hover throttle value accurately. So when you first enable position hold, Betaflight doesn't quite have, it's not quite caught up to the drone to manage its altitude. And in fact, whether you're using GPS or a barometer, the altitude data can be a little bit noisy and a little bit laggy. So what you tell Betaflight what your hover throttle value is, and then when you activate position hold, it immediately jumps to that value. So hopefully the drone is neither climbing nor descending. And then the PID loop starts working and it starts maintaining its altitude by raising and lowering the throttle. But it just sort of gets it keeps it from like suddenly dropping or suddenly climbing when you activate position hold before the PID loop kind of kicks in. So it seems like these parameters have changed since the documentation was written. And this is one consequence of using pre-release features. We've got AP underscore hover throttle and thr underscore hover. And I'm not sure which of those is the correct one. Let's just do some quick Googling. What if I do get AP underscore and look at all the other AP settings to see what AP means? Yeah, and it looks like AP to me looks like stuff related to position hold. So I see the PID related terms for altitude and PID related terms for position, whereas I'm going to guess that throttle hover is for the throttle expo. Throttle expo also has a hover throttle value, so that's going to be for the rates. That's not what we want. So I'm going to set AP hover underscore throttle. Let's look at the current value. AP underscore hover throttle is set to 1275. My drone hovers at about 20% throttle, so that'd be 1200. That's actually pretty close to correct. Set AP hover throttle equals 1200 and save. Okay, 20%, 1200. It goes from 1000 to 2000, so 20% is 1200, 50% would be 1500, and so on. Okay, that's done. We need to calibrate the accelerometer because the accelerometer is involved in holding the quad flat and level to, again, sort of provide the initial basis for the PID controller to hold position. So we'll just go here and calibrate accelerometer with the quadcopter flat and level on the ground. Done. And then we're ready to go outside and fly it. Before I activate these features, I want to make sure that everything is working correctly. So I am going to first make sure that I have satellites locked. I have 11 satellites locked, so I have a good GPS lock. I should also have altitude in my OSD. I don't. I overlooked that, and I'm not going to run back in and do it. But it's a good idea to also just double check that altitude is giving like sane measurements. But we're gonna just wing it. I'm going to go ahead and take off. And the first thing I'll do is I'll just test angle mode and make sure it is working correctly. All right, and here comes angle mode. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. The next thing I need to do is I need to fly straight for a little while. I don't know the exact distance, but if I don't fly straight for a little while, the GPS heading indicator will not be correct. And I won't be able to use POSHOLD. You notice right now, my direction home arrow is not facing home. My home direction is more like right here, but it's facing straight this direction, and that is incorrect. So basically, I need to fly in a straight line, maybe further than this field. I need to fly in a straight line until it figures out what my heading is. I'm going to try and just stay over my field because I don't want anything to be crazy. Here it's working better. So I've flown in a straight line for a little while, and now the direction home arrow is pointing in the correct direction. Now we can begin to attempt to fiddle with this feature. So first, I'm going to enable altitude hold. That didn't go well. It just started descending. Let's try again. Altitude hold. No, it is not happy. Maybe I should get my altitude in the OSD after all. Maybe it is screwy. Oh, wait, my hover position isn't right at all. I see the problem. My throttle is not at 20%. It's, oh, I had expo on my throttle. Do you see the throttle indicator in the lower right reading 36%? Previously, when I was on Betaflight 4.5, this quad had some throttle expo on it. And that readout is showing me the actual stick position, not the throttle position that it is mapped to after expo. So I set my hover throttle to 20%, and it's actually like 36%. I gotta go change that value. That's why it's descending when I switch to altitude hold. Give me 1 second. While I'm inside adjusting my flight controller configuration, can I take a second to remind you that I have a Patreon. If you value the kind of content that you're watching right now, the single best way to make sure that I am able to continue making it is to join my Patreon. Patreon is a website where you subscribe to me for as little as $2 a month. That's the minimum amount. You go to Patreon, you put your credit card in, and then you put your PayPal in, whatever, and then you get charged $2 a month. I get some of that, and I have income that I can count on. You get, well, mostly you get to feel good about supporting the work that I do here, and also you get access to my Discord server, which is a pretty awesome resource for everybody in FPV. If today is the day that you feel like I have earned your contribution, the link in the video description below takes you to my Patreon. I'd love to have you as a subscriber. And if it's not that day yet, if today's the day that you're like, oh boy, another call to action from another YouTuber who wants my money, that's okay. You already fast forwarded. Keep watching the content. I'll keep making the content, and maybe that day will come. All right, let's try that again. And this time I also have the altitude on screen. It says 291 meters. I'm gonna guess that that's above sea level. I don't know. Here we go. Arm, take off. And fly in a straight line for a little while until we get a good lock on our heading. Direction home arrow is not pointing correct. See, it's pointing directly behind me. That is not correct. We're just going to fly in a straight line until it figures out what our actual heading is, our actual orientation is. Still have, oh, it's locking in. It's locking in. Here we go. There we go. Okay, it's figured it out now. Let's just double check that it's pointing correctly. Not really. I don't know if I need to fly in a straight line for longer distance than this, but I only have so much room. It's pretty close. Let's try altitude hold again. We'll get a little altitude here. There we go. Now, as I go into altitude hold, I need to be at center throttle. Oh no, I still have to steer. Oh, right. Okay, so first of all, I need to be at center throttle, and that will make it hold altitude. If I lower or raise the throttle, it'll climb or descend. So if I raise the throttle, it begin to slowly climb. And center throttle. The other thing is, I still need to use the right stick to steer the drone. I'm basically in angle mode with the right stick, and that is altitude hold. Now let's bring it around here, and let's try pause hold. Ready? Moment of truth. Pause hold. Oh, that's pretty good. Oh, it's really locked in. Wow, that's better than I expected. Holy crap, that's amazing. It's totally locked in. It's not going anywhere. Now, I can still fly it. I can still steer it by using the right stick. When I deflect the right stick, it'll go into angle mode, and I can fly it around as if it was in angle mode. So see, as soon as I deflect the stick, it goes into angle mode. And as I center the stick, now, boom, it locks itself back in. And I can see that the accelerometer is a little off because as soon as I deflect the stick, it rolls to the right, left a little. So I maybe want to recalibrate my accelerometer, but this is pretty good. Center the stick, boom. Now we're back in pause hold mode. That's amazing. Lower the stick, begins to descend. Center the stick, hovers. That's incredible. That's shockingly good, to be honest. All right, let's see. We're gonna put it back into, there we go. We're gonna put it back into regular old acro mode and bring her in for a landing. Now, I cannot reiterate strongly enough how important it is to do these tests very carefully. Don't just configure this and go out and frickin' flip the switch and fly it. There are many ways that this can go wrong, especially if you don't have a magnetometer. If you do have a magnetometer, you need to calibrate the magnetometer and check the magnetometer alignment. And that is its own boondoggle. And frankly, although it will work much better with a magnetometer, it's why I tend not to use a magnetometer if I can get away with it. Let's talk about that, the situations where you do and don't need a magnetometer. If I just loiter in place for a long time, eventually the gyro tracking that Betaflight is using to track the orientation of the aircraft will lose accuracy, it'll drift, and eventually it will begin to start to toilet bowl. Exactly how long it takes to do that, I'm not sure. Maybe I'll test and I'll just like hover for 30 minutes and see how long it holds. Eventually you do need to go forward in a straight line for a little bit to reset the heading indicator that Betaflight is using, and then it'll go back to being accurate. The other thing is, if you do a lot of flying where you are not flying straight forward, so for example, if I was like orbiting a vehicle, right? And I'm just orbiting the vehicle, so I'm flying sideways most of the time, and orbit and orbit and orbit, and I've been orbiting for like 45 seconds or a minute. If I then click into pause hold, the heading indicator is not going to be correct because I haven't been flying straight forward. And if I was going to do that, a magnetometer would fix that. But for many of the situations that you're going to be flying in, this is going to be good enough. You saw how freaking good it was, right? And the complexity of getting a clean magnetometer reading, especially on a very small drone like a 5-inch, of calibrating and getting the magnetometer orientation correct, all of that stuff can be more hassle than it's worth. Personally, I always build without a magnetometer first, and I would only insist on a magnetometer. Number one, for like a very big, very expensive bird where just the consequences of failure were high, or for a bird where I knew I would be doing the kind of maneuvers where the GPS heading would not work. Hey, if you've got a GPS on your bird and you've got this kind of autonomous flight features, wouldn't it be nice if it could also return to home? Yes? I've got a setup guide for Betaflight GPS Rescue. It was made for Betaflight 4.5, not 4.6, but pretty much everything in it is still relevant. Well, 4.6 isn't even out yet. So the next video you might want to check out if you haven't seen it is my Betaflight 4.5 GPS Rescue setup guide. And I'll put a card on screen and a link in the video description to where you can find that.